if you've been restless lately, if you've been praying and wondering why heaven seems quiet, then this message is for you. There are seasons when God is not speaking because He is working. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but behind the silence, something divine is shifting on your behalf. Sometimes the greatest move of God happens when you think nothing is happening at all. So don't let the silence make you doubt His presence. He has not forgotten you. He's just building something greater than you imagined. This is the moment to breathe, to release control, and to trust that your waiting is not wasted. God is not only fixing what's around you, He's preparing what's within you. So as you listen to this message, let peace settle in your heart. The same God who began the work will finish it in His perfect timing. Flows. You don't need to force what's already written in your destiny. You only need to trust and stay still while He arranges what you cannot. Every delay, every quiet night, every unanswered prayer is a setup for something powerful. You may not see the whole picture yet, but God is painting it in silence. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to this channel and stay connected, because every word shared here is meant to remind you that even when God is silent, He is not absent. So stay right here. Open your heart and receive this relax, trust, and let God work in silence, because He is working it out for you. When life feels silent and it seems as though your prayers are echoing into emptiness, remember that God's silence is never His absence. Silence is not punishment, it is preparation. There are times when heaven goes quiet, not because God has withdrawn, but because He is orchestrating something far greater than you can perceive. In those quiet stretches of life, when nothing appears to move, He is aligning people, resources, and circumstances to fulfill His promise in ways you could never have arranged. The human heart often equates activity with progress, but in the kingdom of God, stillness can be the most productive season of all. When everything slows down and answers seem delayed, God is shaping your inner world to match the destiny He prepared. The silence tests your trust and matures your spirit. It teaches you to listen without panic, to wait without complaining, and to believe without proof. Many times, we assume that if we cannot hear God, it means He has turned away, yet that is when He is closest, quietly working behind the scenes to prepare your blessing. If you look closely at the stories of faith in Scripture, you'll find that every major transformation was born out of a silent season. Before David became king, he spent years alone tending sheep, learning patience and humility away from the public eye. Before Joseph stood before Pharaoh, he endured prison, forgotten and unseen, yet every silent day built his wisdom and endurance. Even Jesus experienced the divine silence in the wilderness, but that silence became the proving ground for His calling. Flows. So when life feels quiet, it doesn't mean you are stuck. It means heaven is still writing your story. You are in the process of becoming who you were designed to be. And that process requires solitude and silence. God cannot build deeply in you if you are surrounded by noise and constant distraction. Sometimes He removes the noise so that His whisper can reach your soul. It is in that whisper that you discover purpose. When you stop resisting the silence and start embracing it, you realize that stillness is not empty. It is sacred. It is the divine workshop where God refines your heart. Every unspoken prayer, every tear, every moment of confusion is being gathered into something meaningful. The silence becomes a sacred classroom where faith grows stronger and character becomes solid. God is not withholding answers to hurt you. He is teaching you how to stand, even when you cannot see what He is doing. The silence is His method of deep transformation. It purifies your motives, reveals your dependence, and shifts your focus from outcomes to intimacy. When you no longer rely on constant reassurance, you step into mature faith, the kind that walks confidently even in darkness. So if you are in that quiet season now, stop trying to fill it with noise. Sit still and let peace rise. Do not interpret God's silence as rejection. It is preparation for revelation. You are not being forgotten. You are being formed. Every promise spoken over your life is still active, even if it seems delayed. The silence is the space where divine timing is perfected. One day, everything will make sense, and you will look back, realizing that the season of silence was the foundation of your strength. Let your heart rest in that truth. God's silence means He is working, not against you, but for you. It is the unseen proof that heaven is aligning something beautiful on your behalf. So breathe, trust, and hold steady. What feels like stillness today will soon reveal itself as strategy. God's quiet work is the greatest evidence of His faithfulness. Trust grows strongest when sight is taken away, because that is when faith must take over completely. When you can no longer see the outcome, when the plan seems unclear and the path feels uncertain, trust becomes the bridge between confusion and peace. In moments when everything you believed would happen appears delayed, that is where God calls you to rely not on what you see, but on what you know in your spirit. True trust is not built in comfort, but in uncertainty. It is when the vision blurs that faith becomes sharper. When the familiar fades, trust takes root. This is the kind of confidence that does not depend on visible progress, but on the unshakable belief that God remains in control. Every time you release the urge to predict and control the future, you make space for divine wisdom to move. God does not require you to understand His every move. He asks you to keep believing even when there is silence. Sight gives comfort, but trust gives strength. What you see can change, but what you believe sustains you. Trust is not an instant decision. It is a discipline. It is cultivated through surrender, built through repetition, and strengthened through endurance. When God removes what you relied on, it is never to destroy your stability, but to transfer your dependence. He takes away what is temporary so you can lean on what is eternal. You begin to realize that every unanswered question, every detour, every delay was a training ground for deeper reliance. When life circumstances test your patience, that is not abandonment. It is instruction. God teaches you to hold on to Him, not outcomes. To walk with trust is to acknowledge that He sees the whole picture while you only see a fragment. You might be asking why things had to happen this way. But the truth is, divine order always looks confusing in the middle and perfect at the end. Faith cannot coexist with full control. One must give way to the other. When you trust God completely, your heart finds calm even in storms. You stop asking when and start believing that His timing is flawless. You stop fearing loss because you know His will never lead you to emptiness. Each delay, each closed door, each moment of confusion carries hidden mercy. What you call silence, heaven calls construction. God is arranging things far beyond your line of sight. The people, opportunities, and blessings that belong to you are being refined in their own time. Your job is not to rush the process, but to rest in His promise. Trust means you keep walking even when you cannot see the next step clearly, knowing that each move is guided by unseen hands. This trust does not grow in easy times. Flows. It grows in the seasons when nothing makes sense. The greatest peace comes not from having all the answers, but from knowing that the one who leads you never fails. When you place your confidence in that truth, anxiety begins to fade. Worry loses power because trust whispers louder. God never called you to carry the weight of understanding everything. He called you to believe that everything will work for your good. So when you cannot trace His hand, learn to trust His heart. The silence you are facing is not the end. It is this space where trust deepens and faith matures. The more you release control, the more you feel His presence guiding your steps. You will reach a point where you no longer panic in uncertainty, but find comfort in surrender. That is when trust becomes complete. It is no longer fragile. It is firm. It stands steady even when everything shakes. That is the kind of trust that moves mountains. The kind that turns waiting into worship and confusion into confidence. When sight disappears, that is when faith truly sees. Stillness is not weakness. It is the strength that allows God to move freely within your life without interference from human impatience. When everything around you feels chaotic and uncertain, the ability to remain calm becomes a sacred act of faith. Stillness is the space where clarity is born, where confusion fades, and where divine instruction finds a quiet heart ready to receive it. In moments when you feel the urge to act quickly or fix everything yourself, stillness reminds you that not all progress comes from motion. There are seasons where doing nothing outwardly is the greatest demonstration of trust inwardly. When you stop striving to control outcomes, you allow God to align circumstances in ways you could never orchestrate. Peace stillness is the atmosphere where transformation begins, where thoughts settle, and where peace replaces pressure. It is the posture that says, God, I don't need to understand everything to trust you completely. In that posture, spiritual maturity takes root because you stop measuring success by visible changes and start valuing inner growth. Stillness allows you to see beyond emotion and ego. It helps you discern what is truly meant for you and what was only sent to test your patience. Many times, we pray for direction but drown out God's response with our own noise. We keep asking for signs while rushing past His quiet answers. When you practice stillness, you begin to hear Him clearly, not through thunder, but through a whisper that guides your steps gently yet powerfully. It is in that quietness that healing takes place, not just of the mind, but of the spirit. The weight you have carried begins to lift because peace fills the space that worry once occupied. Stillness does not mean life stops moving. It means you stop resisting what is already unfolding. It is in that surrender that revelation appears. You start noticing things you never saw before, understanding lessons that once confused you, and recognizing patterns God used to strengthen your faith. Stillness reveals that God was never far. He was waiting for you to quiet down enough to notice His hand. When you are still, you begin to see that the silence was not a void but an invitation to rest in His sovereignty. The power of stillness lies in its ability to turn panic into perspective. You begin to understand that battles are not always won by fighting but by trusting. Every moment of quiet reflection becomes a tool for spiritual refinement. Stillness teaches you to let go of urgency and to embrace divine timing. Flows. It helps you realize that you don't have to chase what's already destined for you, because what's yours will find its way when you're aligned in peace. Many people mistake stillness for inactivity, but it is in that calm that God does His deepest work. It is where character is shaped, faith is purified, and endurance is built. When you embrace stillness, you move from reaction to revelation. You stop fearing what comes next because you know who holds what's next. That kind of peace cannot be shaken by circumstances because it is rooted in trust, not control. Every time you choose stillness over stress, you are declaring that God is bigger than your uncertainty. You begin to see how waiting with peace is far more powerful than moving with panic. It is not about sitting idle. It is about sitting aligned. When you truly rest in stillness, you give God room to perform what your striving never could. And in that quiet, He begins to turn confusion into clarity, pain into preparation, and silence into strength. Stillness becomes your proof of faith, not in words but in posture, showing that you have reached a level of trust that no storm can shake and no delay can break. Patience in the quiet season is not just waiting. It is learning to trust the rhythm of divine timing without losing peace in the process. When life feels paused and prayers seem unanswered, patience becomes the bridge between promise and fulfillment. It is the virtue that transforms delay into development and silence into preparation. Most people see waiting as wasted time, but in God's design, waiting is the hidden classroom of growth. It is during those long stretches of uncertainty that character is refined, perspective is deepened, and faith is strengthened. Patience is not passive, it is active surrender. It means choosing calm over panic, faith over frustration, and hope over despair. It is the ability to remain grounded when progress is invisible. In those silent moments, God works behind the scenes, rearranging situations and aligning details that you cannot see. Every day of patience becomes a building block of strength within your spirit. The delay is not denial, it is divine choreography. While you wait, God is shaping both you and what you have been praying for, ensuring that when the blessing arrives, you are ready to handle it. Impatience can cause you to rush ahead of purpose, but patience anchors you in wisdom. It reminds you that what is meant for you will never require force to obtain. When you rest in patience, you learn to value timing as much as blessing. The truth is, some things cannot be rushed because premature blessings often crumble under the weight of unreadiness. Patience teaches you to appreciate the process rather than demand the outcome. Each moment of waiting becomes an invitation to trust deeper, to listen more carefully, and to rest more fully in God's plan. In those quiet seasons, patience purifies your motives, stripping away fear, ego, and entitlement until all that remains is faith. The longer you wait with peace, the stronger your foundation becomes. Every second of patience is a seed planted in faith. And in the right season, that seed produces fruit beyond your expectation. The reason patience is so powerful is because it proves your confidence in God's faithfulness. When you refuse to give in to anxiety, you show heaven that your belief is not based on speed, but on certainty. You stop asking, when, and start trusting, how. This shift in mindset releases peace that surpasses understanding because you know that nothing can delay what God has ordained. Patience also builds humility because it reminds you that control was never yours to begin with. It teaches you that your role is obedience, not orchestration. While you are waiting, God is working, arranging everything with precision and purpose. Even when it feels like nothing is changing, something is always moving. Doors are being prepared, hearts are being softened, opportunities are being shaped, and lessons are being planted deep within your spirit. Every quiet day is filled with unseen activity. That is why patience is not weakness, it is wisdom. It gives God permission to complete His work without interference. It allows transformation to unfold naturally. It helps you mature beyond emotion and teaches you to rest in assurance instead of anxiety. When patience takes root, peace becomes your atmosphere and you no longer chase blessings. They begin to chase you. You start walking in rhythm with divine timing, confident that what belongs to you will arrive right on schedule. The beauty of patience is that it not only brings the promise, but makes you capable of sustaining it. The waiting season molds you into the person who can carry the blessing without breaking under its weight. So when life slows down, don't lose heart. Embrace the pause as the holy space where God's perfect timing meets your readiness. The longer you trust with patience, the deeper the miracle will grow. Here is your final call. You have prayed, you have waited, and you have wondered when things would finally change. But this message is your reminder that God has never stopped working. Even in the quiet moments when you felt forgotten, He was designing something sacred behind the scenes. Every delay, every closed door, every silent night was part of His preparation. The struggle did not break you because it was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to shape you. Now, peace that flows, the same silence that once made you doubt, is about to reveal what heaven has been building all along. You don't need to chase what God has already assigned to your name. You just need to stay aligned, stay faithful, and let Him finish what He started. This is your season to rest in trust. Let go of the urge to rush. Stop questioning the process and start thanking God for what you cannot yet see. Because when He finally unveils what He's been preparing, it will be greater than anything you imagined. The things that once confused you will make perfect sense. The people who overlooked you will witness your elevation. The doors that refuse to open will swing wide at the sound of divine timing. You are not behind, you are right where you need to be, in the hands of a God who never fails. So as you leave this message, take this truth with you. Silence is not the absence of movement, it is the sound of destiny being built quietly. Breathe, trust, and keep your face steady, because the breakthrough is already forming. If this word touched your spirit, if it gave you peace where there was pressure, then don't leave without taking the next step of faith. Subscribe to this channel and stay connected. Every message here is a divine reminder that your story is still unfolding and God is still writing. Stay patient, stay prayerful, and remember this: even in silence, God is speaking, and He is working it out for you.